with financial markets, and then that led to me eventually, as a general extension, get into entrepreneurship. Right? So I stumbled upon this article of Nifty 50, right? So it was like Nifty 50 rises by X percentage, right? And that piqued my curiosity to the entire world of stock markets and finance, right?
Having founded many startups and projects that are already making an impact, what would your advice be to our generation, the youth?
One of the things that I've noticed in like loads of people is that they
Welcome to Capital Tycoon, the place where future innovators come to learn. My next guest is Jay Shankarpure. He is a 16-year-old builder, entrepreneur, and investor. Today, we're going to delve into his insights, founding many startups and running them, as well as what inspired him to get into the startup route. Jay, thank you for joining my podcast. So, my first question to you is, what does entrepreneurship mean to you?
Hey Josh, firstly, thanks for having me. It's good to be here. Entrepreneurship to me basically means the innate drive of a person to uh, when a person sees a problem in front of him, right? It's the innate drive of a person to stand up and just say that I'm going to solve this problem, even though I might fail in doing so, but I'll just give it a shot, right? It's this innate trait of not passively being a spectator and just watching the problem pass by that you see is sort of is being faced by a lot of people, right? So like summing everything up, right? It's like has this innate drive of a person to uh, just solve, just take action, like bias towards action towards solving a problem, either because you want to impact a lot of people or just to satisfy your curiosity, right? So yeah,
Couldn't agree more. And I think many people from my previous guests, they always have a different versions of what entrepreneurship means to them. But yeah, that's a really good answer. Um, please tell me what inspired you to get into entrepreneurship in the first place and the financial markets, and when you started your journey in the startup world.
right. So I basically one it's like one thing led to another, right? I first started off with financial markets, and then that led to me eventually, as a general extension, get into entrepreneurship, right? So I distinctly remember like when I was in 2020, right? In September 2020, right? It was COVID, like the entire school was online, so I had like loads of free time that I could spend learning new things, right? So one day, like randomly scrolling through Google News, I stumbled upon this article of Nifty 50, right? So it was like Nifty 50 rises by X percentage, right? And that piqued my curiosity into the entire world of stock markets and finance, right? Because I'd always heard these terms of floating into conversation, right? Like stock markets is something related to the economy and stock prices rising and falling, but I never really deep dive into it and like understood how it worked. Right? So one Google search led to another. I searched first for Nifty 50, and then over the course of the next 4 months, I just deep dive into the fundamentals of investing, like how does a stock move up and down, uh, what are the reasons, what are like different types of investing, value investing, growth investing, what are different types of holding periods, like long term investing, options, your like trading, intraday trading, and whatnot, right? So I deep dive into everything over the course of 4 months, and finally in January 2021, I actually through my dad's Demat account like made my own first stock market investment, and that's when I sort of learned that all the like knowledge that I'd gathered was kind of it was kind of for lack of a better word useless, right? Because I when you actually put in your money, loads of the idealistic expectations that you have on the stock market just vanish, right? Because you have actually put in your money, and uh, all of like the reasons of being really calm and temperament, like having really calm behavior towards your investment, really just uh, puts you off, because that's not the reality. That's not what happens, right? So like that just showed me reality of like where I actually stood, where actually I stood, and like I made like bit of like wrong stock picking at that point in time. Like a couple of stocks that I picked didn't go as well. That also taught me that there's lots of more things to do for me, right? So after that, over the course of like next 9 months, I again like went into a monk mode of sorts. Like I just deep dive into every sort of book or piece of content that I could grab my hand on to, right? Like related to finance, right? Like all the books that are there, Richer Wiser Happier, your Benjamin Graham, uh, everything, right? Like I went into just deep diving into all the investment, like the top investors, Charlie Munger, Warren Buffett, Michael Mobsey, your Howard Marks, Joel Greenwald, everyone, right? So, and I learned like over the course of those 9 months, I learned the actual basics of like actually the fundamentals of fundamental investing, right? Like how do you go about analyze a company right from scratch, right? Like what do you actually see in a company when you look at it, right? Like how do you like categorize its business segments? You see how do you analyze its balance sheet? How do you analyze its cash flow statement? How do you analyze its profit and loss statement? How do you read conference calls? How do you read uh, everything that comes with it? Right? And that put me in a better spot. Eventually, I like improved in my stock picking and could garner some good returns out of my investments. And at the same time, I started this a research blog of mine called Entrepreneurship, where I should just publish blogs of my financial learnings that I found interesting. Right, I used to break down companies right from their business segments to analyzing their revenue streams. What are their future potentials? What are their antithesis pointers? What are the risks involved, etc., etc. And I used to share that on Twitter. Right, so that eventually grew up. My Twitter actually sort of like in the course of those 3 to 4 months garnered like from went from zero to like 10,000 followers because of the stories that I posted. And yeah, that eventually led me to starting my entrepreneurial venture, right? Because it was like a natural extension to it, I would say. Yeah.
Okay, interesting. And please talk about your latest startup, Localhost, and how and the why you co-founded the $50,000 startup fund focused on investing in early stage startups, along with Kei Hayashi.
Right. So, yeah, like one of the recent ventures that I started with Kai was Localhost, right? It's a startup fellowship program where we invest up to 20K to young, ambitious, driven builders, right? The reason behind starting it was to empower the student entrepreneur community, right? Because Kai and I both have been like startup founders since we were like 14 years old, right? So we have the pedigree and the experience in terms of sort of we've seen all the cycles, right? Like we know how hard it is for a young, ambitious 14, 15, 16, 17 years old to 17-year-old to raise funds, right? It's like people find it hard to believe in you because of your age and stuff like that. And we saw a gap in like the funding market there, right? So we were like, why not start a fund that empowers these people, right? That in turn bets on these that takes irrational bets on these people and eventually see what happens. So yeah, it was basically to scratch our own edges. The problem that we face, we don't want the next generation to face that. Right? So yeah, that's a bit about Localhost and why we started it.
Okay, insightful. And I know you mentioned a bit about your startups, but please, could you dive a bit more into about your experience running Spark and the nonprofit that received a $20,000 sponsorship, as well as Sodh, and your a bit more about your own podcast and the internships you held, if that's fine.
Yeah, sure. I'll just like start off from Spark, right? So Spark is again a venture that I started way back in I think June or July of 2023 with my co-founder called Michael and Andrew. Right? So the initial aim of Spark was to create a community of like-minded hackers or slash builders that love building startups or side projects. And we eventually started off from that. But over the course of next couple of months, we found better or like we sort of like pivoted to a better mission statement, right? And the current lead Spark aims to build an ecosystem to empower indie hackers through hackathons, right? So that's our current goal. In the in last year, we hosted 3 hackathons, 2 online hackathons, which received over 200 plus people's participation and around, I guess, $3,000 in sponsorship, along with hosting India's largest no-code offline hackathon in the city of Bangalore. Uh, last year in I think October or November that received over more than $10,000 sponsorship, right? So 10 or 20 years ago. But yeah, so we eventually sort of like lost a bit of momentum after that because of sort of like personal commitments of other team members and personally even mine. But now we are picking up the momentum again, and we are hosting a comeback hackathon actually next weekend on 15th, 16th, and 17th March, which is about more than $20,000 in sponsorship, and we sort of like partner with Tractive to host that, right? So that's a bit about Spark and my experience with it.
Okay, wow. And what's been the coolest moment for you, would you say, running these startups?
That's an interesting question. The coolest moment, as in like in terms of like coolest moments in terms of what?
Just like general highlights of like that has been for you running these startups.
One of the patterns that I've noticed throughout my startup journey is that once you connect with uh someone, it just blows my mind how sort of quickly you find newer opportunities, right? It's like I I'll tell this in context of Spark, right? Like I connected with my co-founder Michael way back in I guess May of 2023, and I had like no intention of starting Spark at that point in time, right? I just wanted to connect with him just like chat with them like fellow ambitious builders, right? And I had no ambition of starting Spark at that point in time, so it was just like a casual conversation. But at that point in time, I found like I built a connection or relationship with him, right? Like, and that eventually opened the door of me starting a company with him, like 1 month or 2 months later, right? So, like, the coolest thing is how like sort of one opportunity can uh, potentially sort of expose you to 100 other opportunities, right? So yeah, that's probably that's probably one cool attribute of starting up or networking in general.
That's interesting. Now, how did you teach yourself technical knowledge such as software development? Like, what learning methods have you found useful? And also, what are some other skills that are needed for running startups? And another thing, I wanted to get a bit into how TKS. So, for those that don't know, the Knowledge Society. So, we are both part of a program that runs for the youth generation or young people. How has TKS contributed to the value of your dream?
Right. In terms of asking your first question, right? Like how do I learn technically? Sort of how did I become technically sound? I would say uh, I again sort of just after I like continuing back my story, right? Just after I started my blog in 2021, it was about 2021, I guess, was about to end. At that time, I got the idea to start a platform, right? Again, to scratch my own itch. Basically, I was struggling as a fundamental investor, right? I was struggling to find a very niche type of data called capacity expansion data. So just to give a context about what the data is, it's basically like think of it like a company XYZ company that manufactures cars, right? And they are spending $10 million to expand into a new capacity in Singapore, right? They're setting up a factory in Singapore for $10 million. That's like a greenfield capacity, right from scratch. They're building it right from scratch, and that's gonna at 70% capacity utilization produce, let's say, $3.4 million in revenue, and that in turn is going to, after cutting down all the operating expenses, like bring, let's say, $1.3 million in revenue for the company, right? Profit for the company, right? So like the proper cash that comes to the company's hand. Now, the reason why this is really important for fundamental investors is because uh, in stock market, eventually what drives the stock price of a company is either anticipation of earnings growth or earnings growth in like actual sense, right? So, and this like capacity expansion is the purest form of earnings growth that can happen, right? It's like most cleanest and the best ways to expand a company's earnings, right? And that's why it's really important for fundamental investors like us who are betting on a company for long term. But I found that no one in Indian ecosystem, like in the stock market research ecosystem, had this data aggregated in one platform, right? So over the course of next 4 months, like from January 2022 to around April 2022, I deep dive into how can I actually create a platform to have this data aggregated, right? I remember deep diving into literally every piece of tech at that point in time, like no code, uh, uh, AI, machine learning. I learned all sort of cloud services like AWS, CGP, your Azure, everything that you can imagine. Right? At the time, I eventually the way I solved this problem was actually integrating Chat GPT. So not Chat GPT, it's called GPT-3 back then. So this is my first exposure to GPT, right? In 2022, actually, no one knew about it. So at the time, the API pricing were also quite expensive. But eventually, I fine-tuned the GPT-3 back then to the stock market's data that I collected, and and basically made a booted up a no-code front end and backend powered by Python, and yeah, just launched the site in April of 2022, right? And since then, it's like because of the sort of uh, lack of sort of like financial constraints, I couldn't like replicate that capacity expansion data across all the companies because again, it's like the API costs were too expensive back then, and if you have to run them every single day or over the course of over like let's say potential 1 or 2 lakh corporate announcements that come every single year, right? That's gonna bankrupt you, right? So we eventually pivoted to sort of offering other types of data services like corporate announcements, events calendar, results calendar, your Congo calendars, and your daily mail feed, right? That just you can just add companies in your which watch list that you have invested in or trying to probably just have a look on, and we'll send you a mail every single day at 8 a.m. in the morning just to like see what happened in your companies, like all the updates that happened in your companies. Yes, the previous day, right? So yeah, the I would say the best way to like this is the way I learned all the technical knowledge that I have currently, right? Is and that's this is the process I would recommend everyone, right? Like pick a project that either you are really passionate about uh or like you're curious about or like you want to just solve the problem for, and then learn it all by yourself, right? Like I could have like outsourced this thing to anyone else at that point in time, but then it would have like taught me all the knowledge that I have currently in terms of building tech, right? So yeah, that's the entire journey of like learning tech. Yeah.
Okay. And you spoke at the G20 Summit representing Microsoft. Um,
Right.
how does a young person set themselves up to secure opportunities like these in such events? And what did you have to do to increase your surface area of luck?
Right. I think Paul Graham talks about this in length, right? I think it's uh, like there's this thing in startup world, right? Like a startup founder like just reads a newspaper and there's like a small announcement about like an idea, right? And then it just like speaks to him that why not we build a company in this area, and he starts a company that goes on to becomes highly successful, right? But what people don't like actually realize is that that's just he basically put him in a situation to get frequently lucky, right? You have to put yourself in the situations so that you eventually get that lucky. So that he might be reading that newspaper since like last 3 years, right? And nothing actually happened. But out of the blue, one day there's like this news that just inspires him to start something up, and that actually succeeds. And people just see that part, right? But he put himself like last 3 years into the thing to get lucky, right? I would say like that's what like generally happened with me, right? So it's quite interesting story, by the way. Back in just after I launched Sodh, right? I my class 10 sort of like commenced, right? So I started my class 10 school in I guess June, and I was just just getting accustomed to the school life and just like I was kind of figuring things out how to manage both startups and school at that point in time. But in August of 2022, right, like my AI teacher, so AI is like a artificial intelligence subject that was taught at our school. So she was presenting a presentation about like just teaching kids about AI, right? And I was like, I just went up to her and said, hey, I just created this platform. It's like a stock research platform wherein I use OpenAI's GPT model, and I've like fine tuned uh, like my own if I fine tuned it with my own data. And I showed her to her, and she was like really impressed by it. And that's it. Right? Like that was end of the thing. Nothing happened to her. She left the school after that and joined a different school. I didn't hear her, didn't like hear anything after her about her. But out of the blue, after I completed my 10th grade exams, final exams in June, I guess in June 2023, I received a call from her, right? Like directly out of the blue. I was like just out of my dentist appointment. I remember this clearly. But she just like told me that, she eventually went deep dive into the field of AI, and she got associated with Intel AI, and their program for teachers, right? And for that, she got a opportunity to be present at like G20 Summit. And like she told me that, I'm at the G20 Summit since like last 2 days, and this basically the Microsoft people at the stall are unable to find uh, any people to sort of present for them, like any sort of cool people who have like done something amazing projects or something like that. And she said like, you showed me a project like last year, right? And that's OpenAI, like used OpenAI, and that like in turn is associated with Microsoft. So she said like, why don't you present in for them? Right? So yeah, I said like, why not? Yes, I said like directly uh, said yes, and yeah, that's how I landed the opportunity. I presented. I went to G20 Summit. Like it was hosted in my home city, Pune, for like around like 2 days, and Mr. Madras, director, all the like delegates and dignitaries from like 30 plus countries, and uh, so it was a great learning experience. Published, you give me this. I could have done it. It just you. I think of like opportunity. I think of it like opportunity as a every connection that you make as a door, and that door will in turn open like a new world of opportunities for you, right? So yeah, just showcase your work uh, proliferously as much as you can, and yeah, you'll get lucky. Put yourself in situations where you can get lucky.
Fascinating to hear. And what are some challenges that you have faced being an entrepreneur?
Uh, Lots of them actually, but one of them that we currently like most recent challenges that I currently face is how to maintain a momentum in the startup, right? I think Sam Altman says that never let momentum never let never let uh like do anything, but don't let lose of momentum in the startup, right? Because that's the most important thing that a startup can have, right? It's like 5 to 6 ambitious people just working towards a goal, right? I think that's something that I've been sort of working towards implementing in both of my ventures, Spark and Localhost, right? Because we right now are like at a point where we like have that uh, sort of momentum phase for like 10 to 15 days, but then like something or the other happens and it just breaks, right? Like there's some exam happening, or there's like any other external factors, but it just breaks, and I don't want that to happen. Like so that's one of the challenges that I'm tackling, is like how to uh, keep on keep on the momentum, like how to like sort of never let your foot off the gas. Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. What skills and traits are essential for any young person to learn who wants to be successful?
That's an interesting question. I think for you to be successful at anything, what you need to like, in my opinion, have is like curiosity and then perseverance. So that's what I applied throughout my life to be successful at anything. Right? Like if I had to grow my Twitter account, I was like, I never like aimed to grow my Twitter account. I was just like curious about learning new topics about finance and investing, and like I was really perceived. I was like really obsessed with it. Right? Like I was uh, at that point in time spending 6 to 8 hours every single day just heads down reading those 600, 700 pages annual reports, right? Reading those like lengthy conference call transcripts, and those boring financials, like financial statements. Uh, but I was like really curious towards it, right? So that like wasn't a dull phase for me. It was like I enjoyed every moment of it. So yeah, I would say like be curious about anything and just like pursue it, like be obsessed with it. That would be it.
True. Having founded many startups and projects that are already making an impact and generating results, what would your advice be to our generation, the youth or young entrepreneurs who are starting out and want to make an impact? And it's one thing to start, of course, but what about for those that are already making results and want to grow with momentum?
Right. Uh, one of the things that I've noticed in like loads of people is that they like wait to gather a lot of experience and then start up, and they delay the process of like actually taking steps and starting anything, right? I found that like kind of a bit uh, like misaligned with my approach. Like I have been always with like approach of like starting multiple projects and see what sticks, like fail and learn faster, right? Like to gain that sort of experience, you uh, might not want to wait, right? Like you can just like start a company and like fail and then learn from it, right? You don't have to sort of prolong the urge to start up just for you, just if you're not inexperienced, right? You can cover up for it with like a higher rate of learning, right? So yeah, that would be my advice. Like just start early, fail fast, and learn fast as well.
Okay, sure. What are some mindsets you have learned or found useful when it comes to being an entrepreneur?
Uh, it's a good question. I think uh, I haven't like sort of let me think about this question, right?
Sure.
I think one of the things that like always uh, I don't know if like this is like the mindset things, but one of the things that like really helped in my all of like entrepreneurial ventures has been always again like I think be curious and be perseverant, right? Like be obsessed with it. I think that I would say like the same thing that it's just uh it's like if you're not passionate about a thing and you pick it up, then you will eventually lose motivation to pursue it and like again lose momentum, right? And that's like the most important thing that you don't want to happen in a startup, right? That you don't want to let happen in a startup. So yeah, I think sum it up, just be curious and do things that you like and then obsess over it.
Yeah, absolutely. How do you manage your time being between many projects and be able to balance your work with your studies? And how do you do well in both work and school? What would your advice be? And would you say that you have found working smart or hard is better, or perhaps a bit of both?
I think I think I'm this is like a problem that I'm currently also struggling with. So I don't like how of like a sort of impactful answer that I can give, like a super accurate answer that I can give with. But uh what I've like I think like when like you can manage both startups and like studies, like sort of like your extracurricular interest and studies when both of them are what you really like, right? Let's say I'm right now learning about venture capital and entrepreneurship, and let's say if I have a subject in high school that like is about economics or microeconomics or business management or leadership, like that is like the ideal case scenario, right? But that's not the case with most of the high school kids, right? Like I'm taking subjects that I in my high school that I've sort of like least interest with, right? So then it's like a bit of then it's like a bit hard for you to maintain your maintain a balance between both of them because you will procrastinate studying till the very end of the exams because you like absolutely hate your subjects, right? And yeah, so the ideal case scenario would be like pick things that you really enjoy doing. But if you can't do that, then uh, like something that's sort of like working for me is just time blocking, right? Like you uh, block time, or like let's say you block 6 hours of studying to mathematics, and then you just do 6 hours of studying maths, right? You just don't touch anything else. You just don't respond to any notification or message that comes in, and just get it done, right? Just get it done. Just get academics done, and then like for the rest part of the day, just focus on whatever you have to accomplish in terms of your extracurricular interests. Yeah, I
Yeah.
don't know if like my answer was like, sort of like any helpful, but yeah, I think you should like yeah, but it was just like my approach to it.
No, I'm sure it will be helpful. Yeah. On the topic of school, should schools teach financial literacy, and how can they introduce that, if so?
Right. Yeah, I think definitely on financial literacy and like loads of other subjects should be taught in schools, especially Indian curriculum schools, I would say. Uh, but like what I've noticed is in terms of let's say last year like AI was introduced in my school, right? But it was not like there's anything wrong with the curriculum, but the way it is taught, right? I think what needs to be done in financial literacy is just get really younger, great kids exposed to these concepts of credit cards or your debit cards. How does bank works? How does money work? What is money? You know, in like sixth, seventh, eighth grade, ninth grade, right? And sort of like pique their curiosity. The intention shouldn't be to grill down the workings of a credit card to a sixth grader, right? He shouldn't be asked questions like, how does a credit card work? Or like what is like the draw a diagram of a credit card, right? Or just like how many digits are in a credit card, right? All these questions should be asked in like your exams. Like the intention of the subject should not be sort of to assess the kid in any manner. Like they should be just to pique the curiosity of the kid. Because if you do that, then the kid will eventually like when he has like free time, he'll just like he'll find himself googling, right? Like what is a credit card? How does it work? How is money, right? That will take care of itself, right? So the approach needs to change from uh, sort of assessing the kids in terms of financial literacy, but like just to pique the curiosity, right? If you do that like in a very early grade, like sixth, seventh, eighth, and then you'll see that then they'll eventually pick things up by themselves.
Okay, interesting. Who inspires you?
Uh, I think it's mostly like-minded peers in like overall it's like startup ecosystem community, right? Like folks like Aryan Sharma, like he's one of the TKS alumni, right? Who's like the founder and CEO of Individual AI, right? And all the other sort of like TKS alums or anyone who's doing something interesting of the similar age bracket is an inspiration, right? Like Krishav is doing something interesting, building a slow. I'm sure you've heard of him, right? And there's like loads of more, right? But if I have to like answer in one sentence, would be like similar age peers doing something interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. What are you going to be working on next?
I would say I would be not starting anything new or like novel in the near term, like at least this year. I'll be doubling down on both of my ventures, Spark and Localhost, and scaling them to newer heights, right? So that's my entire goal for this year. It's just to scale existing ventures and find deeper levels of product market fit in sort of Spark and scale and like optimize the investments and the founders that we empower in Localhost to
Okay,
Localhost.
yeah. Well, we're out of time, unfortunately, Jay, but thank you for joining my podcast. It's been really insightful discussion, and it's really inspiring the work you're doing, and it's been a pleasure having you on.
Thanks for having me. It's great talking with you. All the best.
Thanks.
Bye.